everyone, well, Melissa here with our final Creating Through Christmas. We're definitely past Christmas, but one more video with the song, featuring the song, "Oh Come All You Faithful," which I really think is a carol for the whole year. I am sorry the video kind of cuts out quickly here, but paint the whole thing with me or fast forward to the end to see how it turns out, and then read below for the journal prompt. And I hope you really do have a wonderful end of the year. Hi everyone, well, we're finishing up our Creating Through Christmas. So this definitely Christmas is through. We've got one more painting to do in our Celebrating the Gifts of 2022 series. And what I wanted to do was to create a painting that celebrated the gifts and the gifts that never go away. And so for the song, I've chosen one of my favorite carols, "Oh Come All You Faithful, Joyful and Triumphant." And just as you reflect on this year, the gifts that you've been given that have been the sweetest, that are often maybe not material gifts, that don't go away. And I'm choosing my sister, I'll have to share the story sometime. She bought me the cutest little tree, and I just love the smell of the pine needles. And I was thinking about them and thinking these beautiful evergreen trees, they really reflect faithfulness. They are in season, no matter what is going on, no matter if it's hot or it's cold or it's snowy. They just reflect that sense of faithfulness. So let's start painting and I'll start talking. I'll talk a little bit more, but you can see I have a really simple home here. I've got a couple of evergreen trees here. We have a pretty big sky, which we can use for our journaling. And we're gonna do something a little bit different this time. We're actually gonna be adding some white paint at the end to create this sense of snowing, which is really fun. You certainly don't have to, but it's a fun addition. I've just got my colors out here as well. So we're using, I have an ultramarine, I have a phthalo blue. So you don't have to use two blues. This is what they look like mixed. I just really love doing that. And then I'm using a hooker's green, but you certainly can use a different color green, a little bit of yellow and a little bit of cadmium red. And so those are the colors. We're not using too many. What I'm going to do first is I have sketched my home, and I'll bring it in a little bit nearer. You can see too where I have done some extra detail work of really sketching in around the wreath, the bow, little details around the windows. So take your time if you want to just have fun sketching a little bit. I just was feeling a little bit whimsical. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to do my stars first. So I want to do some stars in the sky. So pick up your yellow, and you might have some cadmium yellow. I think this is actually the cadmium is what I picked up. So I've got that going. I have got a cup of hot coffee nearby. I've got my candles going, really again reflecting on the sweet gifts of the year. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to put some stars up here. This is going to be a pretty loose watercolor, especially when we do our sky. We don't want the sky to turn green, so we will have to be careful as we move around the stars, which is why I wanted to paint them first. And I'll come in a little bit closer so you can see those stars. If you even want to do like little dots, you certainly can like that. And that might even go like this. And then do some bigger ones. If you are anywhere where there's been so many storms, without power, without water, I hope your home, I hope you have power again. Hope you have heat. This has just been a wild, wild Christmas for so many people. Not what they wanted. And so it is amazing. You know, we have so many things are out of our control, right? And going with the flow, making the most of things. It's really hard this time of year. I know for me, I will get to the place of, even if it's been a great year, and I think every December is all the emotions. It is wonderful, it's hard, it's very full, I love the festivities. It's emotionally draining with everything going on. There's always several things that come out of left field, right? I'm just painting in the yellow of the windows. We're gonna pretend that whoever's in here is in warm. They've got the lights on. If you wanted to add a little bit of red, or if you have some gamboge or whatnot, you can certainly add. I'm gonna add just the tiniest bit of red to yellow and then dab that in there. It just kind of gives it a little bit of a warm glow. So I'm going to add that in right there. But December's full of all the things. And I know when I get to the end of this December, almost notoriously every year, I'm going to dab a little bit more in my stars. I am so emotionally drained, and I have to remind myself that Anne Lamott quote, everything works better when it turns off for a while, including you, right? So I just have to take a little break. And that's why I think that week between December and January, even if you're working, I know I'm doing some work. It's definitely not as crazy as we finish up the year. But we're working Tuesday through Thursday this year. But also really incorporating time to rest, right? To reflect, to look at the whole year. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later on in the next videos. But again, that theme song, "Oh Come All Ye Faithful," I've written out a couple verses here. I love that song. When I was little, okay, now I'm going to do the trees. And so I'm doing the trees first because they overlap the house. And so if I do the house first, I will inevitably paint over the trees because that's how I tend to be if I'm not careful with where I'm painting. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and just start laying this down pretty loosely. These beautiful pine trees. Just thinking of the faithfulness of the pines, these evergreen trees, they are in season and out of season, whether it's dry, whether it's snowing, they don't seem to take a break. They are just faithful. And that reminded me of my favorite carol, the "Oh Come All Ye Faithful." Such a beautiful, beautiful song and carol of worship, is just well reminding us what our stance is to be no matter what is going on because of Christmas, because of Jesus coming. And so just I love the cadence of this carol. I love how strong it is and how hearty it is when we sing it in church or on my own. This is one I will often sing when I'm walking, not when anyone's around because no one needs to hear that. But when it's super early and I'm on the trails and there's no one really else around, this is the one that just comes easily to my memory. Okay, and I just took the darker paint. You can also add some blue and just to get some depth. Oh, and we're going to use a bit of brown. I forgot the brown. We'll add that to our painting, making sure you can see that too. So you can see too with evergreens, I love the way they flow. And I usually start at the top and it's like almost kind of like an upside down V. We're going to get the wreath on the door next. And I'll get the trunk of the tree. You'll notice too, we're going to create as if the snow is kind of piling up against the tree trunks, as well as against the house. So it's going to be a slight angle when we paint. And just moving that. And I'm not trying to cover it. We'll end up covering it with the white paint too. So keep that in mind. And letting that go. And again, I'm trying to keep these paintings, this one might take a little bit longer, within 15 minutes, because even though we're slowing down, it's still busy. And I know for many people too, they're finishing up so many end of the year things, or cleaning, or the kids are off from school, all the things, right? So hopefully you're able to do this maybe in the evening, in the morning. I'm just gonna lightly go over my green. I had sketched out some of the details so then I could just touch up with the green. And I'm gonna let that dry before I put that red on, so we don't let it turn into brown. Another idea I had that I've done before is on this paper, I have sketched out the house and the tree, but I wrote out the song, so we'll paint over them. And that's another option, and I may do a video of that. It's just a different look versus right now I'm intentionally leaving an area here, as well as in the sky, that if you want, you can journal, or you can always flip it over. But on this one, counting the gifts, again, those gifts of, the gifts that don't go away, the faithful gifts, the gifts of what's been consistent in your life that you're really grateful for. I think this is important too, because at the end of the year, I know for me, so many things, you start counting things up. You may be looking at bank balances, or if you're working any sort of, okay, I've got the brown now, I'm gonna go ahead and put the brown on my trunk. Maybe you're an organization that end of the year and you're looking at profit and losses, or success, or what you did or what you didn't do. And I don't know if any of us actually do as well. Sometimes we do as we wanted to, or the company expected us to. And that can be really hard at the end of the year after we're feeling emotionally fatigued. I have to remind myself, what's really important is not necessarily, your outcomes at work or at school, your grades. And it's hard in a world that is very much measures everything, which is good for some things, but then assigns a worth and value. And so it's just important, I think, to remember my life is so much more than outcomes. It's much more than financial numbers. It's much more than goal achievement. Okay, I'm going to go ahead, do another brown roof, and then we're going to do the blue sky, I think. I think we're going to do the house of blue too. So we're going to have a lot of blue, but that's going to be really fun. And oftentimes, what is the most valuable and important gifts in our lives have nothing to do with anything, number, or many times anything that's even visible to so many other people, right? I'm thinking too of like my dad, who's spending a ton of time taking care of his mom right now, who is 92. And it's a big responsibility. And it's a great gift to her, to the family. And I know many people right now are taking care of loved ones. And caregiving is one of the most greatest gifts, greatest character builders, right? Let's make that door brown too. But something that many people won't see and will go unthanked for. But just because nobody sees doesn't mean it wasn't one of the most valuable gifts. All right, so I'm just painting here. I'm moving this down. I'm hoping that you're thinking of maybe some really sweet memories of gifts that you're grateful for this year as we celebrate the end of 2022. All right, I'm going to do a little bit of brown right in here. This is always the hard part, inside the wreath. I'll get a little bit closer there so you can see that. But it's coming along really nicely. We're going to leave all of this white. We'll end up doing just a little bit of blue though to show that reflection of the snow. But let's go ahead, and I'm going to do a light blue, just almost like a wash. Make sure your water is, the blue's fairly, just kind of get it fairly light. Whatever blue that you're using, add a bit of water to it because I want it to be a little bit lighter, and just kind of do a bit of a wash. Moving around, not too close to the brown because it will merge together. I'm just going to go around here. I'm going to go under my window. Again, I'm not too worried. I'm making this too detailed. I'm going to go in between my windows. Over here a little bit. Coming up under my roof. There we go. Now that I'm talking about "Oh Come All You Faithful," I will be humming it for the rest of the day. Okay, now that that's a little bit lighter, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come in, I'm going to take the darker blue because we're thinking it's a night sky. We've got our stars. I still need to make that chimney red, so I'm saying that out loud so I don't forget. And I'm going to take and just start moving around the sky. And I'm going to come down to where, so where's my snow? I think the end of my horizon is right here. So I am just going to move around these yellow stars here. We're going to go against the roof, but try not to merge onto the roof. We don't want the sky merging into the roof. I'm going to come over here, grab some more paint if you need some more paint. Kind of come up here, and again, just moving around. It does not need to be perfect. And you're going to see when we splatter on the white paint, the white paint is going to cover up a lot of things and just really bring a nice cohesiveness to this. Now I'm going to be using white craft paint, like just the stuff that's like 68 cents or 98 cents at the craft store. And I'm just going to end up mixing it with water. We'll have to let this dry first, but I'll come back and show you what that looks like. And you may decide you don't want to do that, but it is a fun little, just this fun little effect. Okay, I'm going to come through here. And we're moving along really nicely. You know, we kind of avoided doing any sort of like detail work on the house. I was trying to keep the house simple. I was also thinking too, I wanted to do a post-Christmas but a winter painting. I don't know about you, but I often, the wreath is like I leave it up through New Year's at least. And so that wreath, it's not overly holiday-ish, but it's just a wonderful reminder of the season, right? Okay, so coming in, you're noticing too, I'm keeping my brush, just kind of dancing that tip around the stars, but there's still lots of white, and that's okay. We're kind of creating that starry night sky. Use a round tip. Try not to make harsh lines. That's why I don't usually use a square tip brush, because I don't want those edges, especially in my sky. And if we're doing flowers, which we will be doing, we're going to do a flower bouquet for the final, just a 2022 wrap up. So this is looking really nice. Now, be careful too, if your painting is wet as you go behind your trees, I will try to go in between some of those edges. I'm going to get close to my house, and I really hope, good, I just don't want to bleed into the house. It always frustrates me. I'm going to go all the way down here with that darker blue, and just a little bit, and then over here too. Okay, that looks nice. If you see anywhere where your sky looks a little bit light, just come back in and just add a little bit more blue. I often find too, especially on like stormy nights, the sky and the clouds in the sky are making different variations of blue and gray, right? Now that looks really neat. Now what we're gonna do next is I'm gonna just get a little bit of water on that brush and I'm gonna come right over here and bring it right down on that snow to show it reflecting off the trees, right? Where you would see some of that shadowing. And even along the house, I'm gonna just move that down like this. And if you wanna do another slow drift, snow drift, we can do that over here as well. Again, this is going to give you some time to do some journaling though too. If you wanted to write some of your gifts, you could even write a paragraph out. You can write them along the house. We're going to stop right here. If I did anything, what I would just do is probably add just a little bit more green. I might even mix the green and blue together. I'm going to do that. Mix my green and my blue and then come back on the trees, and you can just add in some different color here. It just adds a little bit of depth. And if you think, oh, that looks too blue, just grab some green and just lay it right over. And again, that just adds a little bit of depth to our branches. I'm going to come over here and just do a little bit. Okay, that looks really nice. Let me check our time really quick. Where are we? We're at 16 minutes. We have to add our red. Grab a teeny tiny brush, depending on what you're using, because we're just going to drop in a bit of red to our wreath. It should be dry. If your wreath's not dry, definitely hold on. But I just want to add a little bit of red here on my bow. You can certainly add a different color if you'd like. And then up here, I'm going to come up in my chimney. And again, feel free to let your sky dry. I'm going to just go on the inside. And if you look around your painting, and if you wanted to, add anything else, you certainly could. If you want to add some ornaments to your tree, for example, I think I'm going to leave mine as is. I'm going to let it completely dry. Then I'm going to come back and I will add in the white snow. So get your craft paint when you come back and we will finish that up. I'm just going to add a little bit more shadowing here. Sometimes it's so hard to stop, right? A little shadowing here under the windows. Okay, all right, we're gonna let that dry and then I'll be back in just a little bit, in just a second with you here. Hi everyone. Okay, so we are back and we are gonna go ahead and just finish up with our painting here. I'm gonna move my coffee out of the way so I don't dip my paintbrush in it. So what I've grabbed is I just had some Craft Smart paint and I have put some in a cup with some water, just a little bit of water. I'm going to use a paintbrush that I don't care about. We will not be able to use this paintbrush for watercolor anymore because that acrylic and watercolor just don't mix. So I'm just mixing them together, and so it's pretty loose. I will say now, while watercolor paint doesn't stain, acrylic paint does, and so this craft paint will stain. So I've got my apron on. If you have like a coffee cup or teacup, I'd move it away. And just know too, on the table, you have to scrub it off. So if you're on like a kitchen table, I would maybe move to a table or at least put a covering down so you're not going to stain anything. And then what we're gonna do is this is pretty dry. I took a pen and I just cleaned it up a little bit, so feel free to do that. I am gonna just leave it light. I was tempted to add another layer of paint, but I thought, no, I'm just gonna leave it. And what we're gonna do now is I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start splattering my snow. And the bigger the paintbrush, the bigger those splotches are gonna be. The reason we want that watercolor dry is because the watercolor paint will actually start flowing and merging, which makes it kind of interesting when the colors start merging with the acrylic paint or the craft paint and moving around. See, oopsie, that was kind of big right there, but that's okay. I'm going to go all the way down, and hopefully this is looking, I'll move it in just a minute. If I get my camera too close, I need to put a cover on it so I don't get paint on that. So I'm going to come in so you can see that, and you can see how nice that looks with the paint, right? Now what I'm gonna do too is I can take my paintbrush and I can just start moving around, especially like on the trees where has that snow just gathered? And this is really a lot of fun. So you just kind of move that around, especially if there's splotches. You can't do that quite so much in the sky, but definitely move that paint on the tree. You can tell where it's just going to be hanging out on the heavier branches. And you can see too, if you have different colors of green, how that really starts to show off right here, right? You can even on the slopes with the snow, just go ahead and lay that paint down by the door. I love that. On the rooftop too, if you want to just show where maybe that paint is just laying down there a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to get some more paint. I'm just going to put some more, oh, those are, raise your brush to make the splotch, the paint drops smaller, or the snowflakes. You can see they start to get a little bit big. If they get big, kind of lift them up a bit. You can actually dab with, I'm just going to use my, my paper towel, and I'm just going to go like that, and that'll just kind of blob them. So you get a little bit of that off. And that kind of looks like a nice, almost a smattering on the window. And I'm going to do that once right on the door where it was a bit of a blob. Down here, I'm just going to go ahead and move that slope of paint down. Now, I will say, if you wanted to do something fun, you can take your watercolor, take that a little bit of blue, try, and then you can splatter just a little bit of the watercolor right on the snowy area, because of course when the snow, all that shadowing right from the house or from just the snow drift, and then I just paint it with the water, with the craft paintbrush, and just let it flow down. So you can just play with this as long or as little as you want, and it's just fun. It is just fun. It looks really, really cute. I'm going to come back up now so you can see that, and that we are done, and that is darling. I did go ahead on this other, the other painting while this was drying, I just did a quick painting on this guy. You can see as well, let me move the camera over, that I had not done the micron pen sketch beforehand, so it's a little bit looser, kind of just as what you like. So then when I go and splatter this little guy, and I'll show you that now, and that can be, I'm just gonna, you really have quite the watercolor look. So again, I'm splattering, trying to be careful not to get too big of splotches, but this has just a little bit more of a loose feel to it. And I have the words underneath it. The words were written out, but the watercolor was pretty loose. I just had a very light pencil. So now with this, as I go ahead and add in some more, that might have been a bit much in the sky, huh? So we'll just, again, we'll dab it just a little bit, real lightly. It just kind of softens up everything. And I can go over here on the trees and just gentle, and these are a little bit wet, and so you can see too we have the white and the green are blending a little bit, but that looks fine. That actually looks really nice, and I can always come back to, and I could, once it was completely dry, add a bit more green, but I'll probably just leave it. I've got some dark colors underneath there. I'm going to just dab around the little wreath here. It's just a big thick snowstorm is what that is. I will take the blue, and I'm going to drop just a hint of blue right there. I just want to drop, and then I'm going to take, let's see if I can do this, take the white, try to get the green off of it, and just move that blue down for a little bit of that shadowing right against the house. And I'll put a little bit of white over the trees where they are covered with snow, and we are done. Aren't those fun? I hope you had fun creating these. I really enjoyed this. Remember, we're finishing up celebrating the gifts of 2022, and today we were looking at the gifts of, what are the gifts of faithfulness, the gifts that have continued to give to you, and that perhaps you've even given to other people, that are perhaps the unseen gifts, the precious gifts that continue on in our hearts and our homes and our lives. Remembering the theme of O come all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant, O come ye to Bethlehem, and it was all rejoicing. Their lives changed because of Jesus' coming, and that really led the foundation of their heart of joy and triumph and worship and happiness ultimately, right? When we have our focus on something other than circumstances. So I just hope you have a wonderful week. I hope this time of reflection is just good for your heart and soul, and I will see you very soon.